actually brings me to another question about AI and machine learning and all the big words that we now see. And when I think of Wikidata, at least, I always think of it as a big data kind of like database, right? It's big data. There are 82 million items, kinda. I mean, it's a database, but it's smarter because it's structured linked data. But I'm curious if you can tell our students a bit about how Wikidata fits into that ecosystem of big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, neuron networks, etc., etc. We've mentioned a bit Siri and Alexa in that sense. So AI using Wikidata as a source to get answers, but I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more.
So yeah, Wikidata is kind of one of the fundamental building blocks of all of the things you mentioned, in that it provides raw data that you can build on. Now, there's different types of data or different types of things that Wikidata provides that are then built upon. One is the actual raw data, the statements, like Germany is the capital of Berlin. Berlin is the capital of Germany. Very straightforward. You can use that to, for example, answer general knowledge questions. But there's also, beyond that, we already touched on the links to other catalogs, databases, and so on. That is very useful to connect different databases and then be able to combine their data to build something new. And on top of that, Wikidata also has an ontology that is being used, a language-independent ontology. What do I mean by that? When you are trying to unambiguously refer to something in the world, like if I tell you just Berlin, then this might be the German capital, but it might also be a town in the US or a music album called Berlin and a bunch of other things that are called Berlin. Now, if I tell you Q64, that is very unambiguously the German capital, Berlin. And this is super useful for building tools because they need to understand the difference between the German town Berlin and the German city Berlin and the US city Berlin, because those are not the same thing, much less the music album. And understanding these concepts and the relationship between them is again a very fundamental building block for machines and more intelligent systems.
So you're saying that today machines and artificial intelligence agents are basically able to use Wikidata. And why is it different, or how is it different? Well, I know the answer, but I'm wondering if you can express to the students in your own words, why is it so different than training machines? So machine learning basically can take, texts or databases that are not linked data, that are not semantic web or Web3, right? That are the older version of the web and can make sense of it. So why is it better? How are we helping humanity? Like, why is Wikidata so important is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So a lot of these systems that understand free text actually do need something like Wikidata or Wikidata. So there's, for example, a tool that you can give a newspaper text, and it will try to extract unambiguously who the people are that are mentioned and all the concepts that are mentioned. And that is necessary, right? If you want to understand as a machine, if a machine is supposed to understand a text, then it will need to understand if you're talking, again, the example of Berlin, then it needs to understand if you're talking about the German capital or the music album or the US town, because that would lead to very different answers for questions you're going to ask. So yes, those systems are smarter, but one of the reasons they're smarter is that they actually have something like Wikidata or Wikidata itself underneath them and can use that to become smarter.
Okay, sounds good. So in that sense, I guess that brings me to two last questions that I have. I mean, we are now interviewing you as part of an academic course, and as an educator, I've been very much occupied by the explosion of data in general, and not only in Wikipedia, but on Wikidata as well. And I'm concerned with data literacy because I feel we need to be teaching the next generations of students to basically know how to handle data and understand data, especially in the age of AI, when they just get answers and they don't even have an idea that there is this, as you say, building block layer where the data comes from. People don't even question it. So I think it's crucial. But I might be, I might be not objective in that sense because I feel so passionately about that. So I'm wondering from your perspective, not as an educator, but as a technical person, running Wikidata, what do you see when you look at Wikidata and, and the whole world basically, which you're tending to the whole world, you're helping organizations in various places in the world to create their own wiki base, and you're basically having an international view. Where do you see Wikidata and academia? Do they go together? What can Wikidata do for academics and for students and for researchers, I would say? I'm very curious to hear what you have to say on that.
So a big chunk of the items on Wikidata is actually describing scientific papers and the findings. So just as a source of research outcomes that already exist and to support more research, Wikidata is already very good. And there's a tool called Scholia, which exposes that in a nice user interface and lets you browse certain topics or researchers and see what kind of research they have done, who they collaborated with, who are the most prolific researchers in a certain field, and so on. So there alone, Wikidata already helps. But I think you touched on data literacy, and that is probably even more important because in a lot of cases, people are exposed to these technologies without understanding what's behind them, as you were saying, and also without a sense of agency over them and being empowered to influence them. And Wikidata, and by extension Wikibase, hopefully in the future, I hope is changing that in the sense that people see what kind of basic data all of this is made from, and also giving them a sense of agency and empowerment that they can influence that and that they can contribute to it, that they can correct if it's wrong, and thereby influence all the technology that is built on top of it. And if we have more Wikibase instances out there than just Wikidata, then hopefully a lot more places will pop up where people are exposed to the idea of, hey, this is the data, this is the raw data that this thing I'm seeing is built on top of, and I can influence that, I can contribute to it.
And beside contributing and influencing, do you see any skills that students or capacities or capabilities that students may gain from working with Wikidata? And on the other hand, how does it help lecturers? How does it help the researchers and the academics on the other side? If at all? I don't know. It's a thing that I've been exploring, and there is no one answer to.
Yeah. No, I think there's a ton to learn from Wikidata. On the one hand, there's data modeling, like how do you describe the world? How do you differentiate all these things, and what matters there? How do you describe a certain disease, or how do you describe movies in a way that makes sense and is useful? All of that is super useful to learn, and there's very interesting quirks in the world that you stumble upon when you do that. That teaches you a lot about the world. But also querying. If you write queries to Wikidata, you will find so many interesting things. So just because it's a big topic right now, people are collecting which prominent people are affected by COVID-19. And you can write queries and get picture galleries of the most famous people affected by COVID-19, for example. And that then very quickly you stumble up on people you've never heard of, but that you probably should have heard from before. And you get into this rabbit hole of, this is that person, what else is there? And so that's very interesting. Yeah, and at the end of the day, just collecting data and finding references for it, doing the actual research of day-to-day contributing, just like on Wikipedia, is also very useful because it teaches you so much about different points of view on certain topics, but also verifiability and proper research practices.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I'm convinced for one. That was easy. But I guess I'm hoping that our students can actually enjoy this second perspective that you bring to the class today. And I guess one last question before we wrap this up, and that is about the future of Wikidata and what you think we can expect in the coming 2 years, or whatever you want to tell us that's coming.
Right. So I think the big things that are on the horizon, of course, is more work around data quality. Like that is a big topic and will stay a big topic. Like how can we support people in keeping Wikidata's data in good shape? And the other big topic is, of course, building out the Wikibase ecosystem. So getting more institutions, projects to run their own Wikibase instance and connect it to Wikidata and among each other. And the third thing, I think, is continuing to better integrate Wikidata in the other Wikimedia projects and making it easier for the editors there to benefit from Wikidata. Through, for example, the ability to edit Wikidata directly from their Wikipedia article instead of having to go to Wikidata. And I think that all together will bring us very far in continuing to build out the basis for a lot of the technology and knowledge that you consume every day.
That sounds good. And I guess with that optimistic note, Lydia, thank you so much for joining me today and
Thanks
talking
for having
to the
me.
students. Yes, we really enjoyed it, and I will send you questions from the students if they have any.
Yeah,
so
that sounds good.
Again. Okay, have a good day and stay safe.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.